Next is I've added a live chat into our conference to where you basically can click on it. It's at the top of our conference, and if I'm available, it will tell you I'm available. If I'm not, it'll tell you I'm not available when you click on it. And just so you know, I'm going to be available more than likely through the daytime through like 3 p.m. because I teach in the evening. And then Wednesday night from 5 to 7, I do not teach. I'm going to actually be online that time. It'll be on, so you can chat live. It'll actually record the log session of our chat. It'll allow me to upload files and you to send files to me as well. I can do remote screen control, and I can show you stuff on my computer. And so anyway, it's out there for you to use, and that's out there for you to start using immediately. And so avail yourself to that. This Thursday we'll be going over Aunty Reset lab, and you'll be getting a Linux distribution called Aunty Reset. It's been out for about 8 years, and the gentleman that developed it is a network admin, and has kept it updated over the years. And the tool allows you to go into any machine, PC-based machine, whether it be server or desktop client, and boot up from this Aunty Reset disk and be able to reset the administrator password to whatever you need to set it to, or null it out. Once you are used to using this tool, it takes about a minute to reset any administrator account on any machine. So be real careful on who you get this tool to. Now, it is open source and free to use. Anyone can download it, and as you know, the site's updated and kept up. But again, it's one of those things I mentioned last week. Everything I teach you this semester can be used for good. It can also be used for evil. And so it's a great tool for IT departments to have, though, for sure. I've used it many times over the years. And then Sunday, review questions and quiz. No class next Tuesday. Monday is we're off for Labor Day, but Tuesday we have Faculty Development Day. And so no class next Tuesday. Campus is closed on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Just a reminder. You will not have anything due next week because of that. So we'll meet again 2 weeks from tonight, so make note of that in your calendar. Or you can actually just, on the calendar for Canvas that we use, it actually has an ICS calendar that you can actually export, iCal calendar that you export to any device. It doesn't have to be just an iPad or iPhone. It can be anything. Droid will use it. So my son uses it as a Droid, and it works fine on that using iCal. And so anyway, that's what I recommend. Is the calendar view is going to be a nice one to view, and then I believe the syllabus view is a good one too, just to see what's coming up homework-wise. Okay, Security Plus. CompTIA Security Plus is a CompTIA is a mid-level security certification. If you're interested, I believe I mentioned this at the end of class last week. If you're interested in this certification, just email me and I'll email you back what you need to do to get prepped for it, and testing and all that good stuff. It'll be a lot easier just to do it that way than to spend time in class to do it. So if you are interested, it's a great middle tier certification. It's not a Microsoft or a Cisco. It's a middle tier, and so it's a great certification though to have. And then a lot of times companies will pay you or pay your way to get the certification, whatever it is that you need for that company today. Now, it used to be, you had to get Cisco or you had to get Microsoft certified in whatever. It's not that much. It's not that way anymore today. It used to be big on certification. In fact, our Cisco classes are still pretty full, but when we first offered them, they were just, it was busting at the seams for a semester on end. So Microsoft shops and Cisco shops both have changed their ways of how they hire folks. And one of the reasons they've changed it is if you come in with all the certifications already under your belt, they're forced to pay you market share for that area, which sometimes is, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more. Or they could hire you with the CompTIA certification and maybe no experience or very little experience. and pay for your Cisco certification. And generally under that, guys, you have to sign a contract saying I'll stay on the company for X amount of years for that. So it's probably smarter for them to do that route, I'm guessing, for a company. And so a lot of students will do the CompTIA Security Plus, get a job, come back to school to get the Cisco certification, because it is reasonable to take here for sure, than like a boot camp type scenario. And so email me if you're interested in that. I'll email you back all the information, what I have. We do offer testing on campus now. And so it is not advertised to anyone but you guys in CIS. Jim Conley is the one over that whole certification testing. So I'll be getting with him on all the people that have told me they're interested and kind of working with him on scheduling and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
We do CompTIA here.
It's not called CompTIA. It's not actually called the CompTIA certification here, but they do the testing for it. It's an overarching company. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. LabSim, or I can't remember the name of it. But it's like a generic company that does any kind of testing for anyone. And CompTIA pays them to do it, which is smart to do that. They don't have to pay for the proctors or anything to do it. And I believe, I might be mistaken, how we're going to do it is we're going to utilize our testing center that we have on campus, right, which already has proctors built into it. They'll be trained how to use it if they've not already been trained, how to deliver the test. And you'll go in, show your badge, show your ID or whatever you have to do, sit down and take the test. Done. And if I'm not mistaken, for our school, some of the tests are going to be very, 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 very discounted, and then some are going to be actually free for if you take certain classes or something. So Conley's going to fill me in on all that good stuff, and then I'll give that to you guys on what I know. So email me in the Eagle if you want to know anything about it. Say you might be just remotely interested. I go ahead and email me, and then I'll shoot you the information. Because it's one of those deals to where you wouldn't have to actually do it this semester if you didn't want to. You might want to do it next semester or next summer or something like that when you're not having a load of classes or something on you. So next semester there will be a network security competition. If you are interested in that, email me as well if you would, because we'll be putting together a team at the end of the semester for this. And it's basically a competition on everything from, it could be from anti-hacking skills to programming to server-based to middle-of-the-man attacks to trying to call companies to see if you can get in. So a whole bunch of different things that they'll have for the competition. It's fun. We've never done it before. And they've actually started getting more turnout for it. So if you are interested, we'll be putting a team together, I think, this semester and actually going. So even if you wouldn't have this class next semester, you'd still be available to come and be a part of it for sure. And you already have this class under your belt. I know some of you are taking maybe the Cisco version of network security at the next level. And so email me if you're interested in a security competition. We will be traveling different places to do it, so it'll be fun. This week we're going to talk about threats and risk as it pertains to network security. We'll look at different types of attacks, software, hardware. Big in the market today is virtualization with VMware and how attackers are targeting virtual systems. We do have a VMware class here on campus that Stephanie teaches. I recommend it if you've not signed up for it. Don't know if it's offered this semester, but when it is offered, I definitely recommend you taking it, which is going over VMware. So software-based attacks, you've heard of some of these terms. If you haven't, we'll just rehash of what you know. But malicious software is the first type of attack, or malware, basically where software enters the computer without the owner's knowledge or consent. In a general term, it refers to a wide variety of damaging or annoying software that comes into your system. There's three objectives of this type of attack: to infect a computer system, to conceal the malicious actions, whatever they might be, deleting files, emailing users, setting up tasks to run on your computer, using your computer on off time using your resources. That's a big one out right now. We're say from midnight to 6. When it sees your system's idle, this app takes over and uses your system resources and pulls together literally millions of computers to do computations and whatever. Now, some of this stuff I'm talking about is actually pretty cool, and it's used in a lot of universities that do high-level, computation type of applications. But you could say it's considered the way it runs as a malware, but you're giving it permission to do it, and so it's not hidden or anything. But there are malware that is hidden that does that very thing as well, and they're using your processing power and your computer processing and memory to perform functions. And sometimes those functions are not wholesome functions that they're performing. Okay? So, let's see, you're going to be able to get back in there, all right?
Clustering is what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you'll be like a clustering of systems together. It does bring profit from actions. An example of some malware that does bring profit would be an app that installs on a machine, and every time it sees an HTTPS web browser session, it takes a screenshot of those screens and then also does key logging of the key entries of the user for username and password, and then sends it to an email address. That's a basic one. And then, stealing bank account information, credit card information, or any type of security type of account information. Facebook. Because a lot of people actually put their credit cards into Facebook if they buy ads as a company. Their credit card information's in Facebook already, and you can actually purchase stuff from that credit card that's Facebook related for sure, but they also has products you can buy and ship to other places via that credit card in that Facebook account, which a lot of people aren't aware of, especially people, just consumers that don't ever use that. But the way Facebook makes money is through their ad advertisement and targeting ads through user geographic area, location, age, likes, dislikes, all that good stuff. So getting somebody's Facebook account, if it's a business, could do some damage. And then viruses. This is programs that secretly attach itself to your computer through a program and execute every time that program is ran. So an example would be Microsoft Excel virus, Word virus, email virus, that every time Outlook's open, this virus runs. It runs in tandem and piggybacks with an executable. So every time it sees that process run in your computer, this also runs as well, okay, and does whatever malicious activity it's supposed to do. Once it infects the computer, it performs 2 tasks. It replicates itself onto other computers. An example of that would be the email example I gave you, or the Excel example, where an Excel document's in a public folder in your workplace that a lot of people access. Not going to take real long to infect everyone with that virus if they open it up and say it has a macro attached to it or something, and they click on that macro, it could infect the computers pretty quickly. And then it activates a malicious payload. That payload can be activated immediately, or it can be activated by date. It can be activated by, turn of year, holiday, 9/11 coming up is a big one that a lot of these activate on. It causes problems ranging from displaying an annoying message, erasing files on your hard drive, or causing a computer to crash repeatedly over and over again, giving blue screen of death. And that could be like a boot sector virus that causes that. Here is an example of an infected malware. Let's see if I can blow this up a little bit. This is kind of funny, actually. This is a pop-up from an annoying virus message. It says here, I think I speak for every pot smoker in North America when I say legalize marijuana. I mean, if people with AIDS, cancer, and other diseases can use it, why can't the rest of us pot smokers, use it? I don't think that's very fair to you. It's legal to grow and use in places like Australia for personal use. Why not North America? If doctors are using it as treatment for illness, then it must be not that harmful. So why can't other people use it? I'll stop there. One of the things I want to mention about this whole article, or this whole, if you call it an article, gross misspellings. I'm not an English major by any means, but I can tell real quick it's not the person who wrote it either is from the country or they're a kid that wrote this or not very well educated when they wrote this and just kind of put together a whole bunch of gibberish. And so a lot of times when you see messages like this on your computer, again, it might not be doing much harm. It's annoying to death, though, to see this pop up every time you open up a certain program, maybe, okay, or a certain website. Websites are really where this comes in a lot. And so anytime I tell students to tell other people, if you a real telltale sign for a malware virus is misspellings in the directions or in the promptings or messages or whatever. You know immediately if the description of the app is if there's any misspellings in the description, don't download it. If there's any misspellings in the README instructions, don't download it. So you just look for misspellings. You read reviews. Download things from reputable websites like download.com, which scans all the programs before they allow people to put them up there as programs. Because as a programmer, you can actually upload programs to download.com, which is cnet.com. They go through an approval process, which I've done it, quite a few of them. It takes about 4 to 6 months to approve that executable, that it's a clean executable. Now, they don't really test it for functionality. They just make sure it's not going to do any damage, really, is I think all they do. But then down the road, after about a year, they do kind of grab by random certain applications and test them. CNET editors will test them. And so the main thing, though, is they do run them through a virus and make sure it's not doing any antivirus, make sure it's not doing anything malicious to the computer. So download them from there. Is a great place, CNET or download.com, which you guys probably know about. Do not download any executables from peer-to-peer sites, from Ganella, LimeWire, Facebook, an attachment in an email, nothing like that. Always from a reputable site. I'm even leery and personally don't install applications that people email me to install. I teach Windows programming, so I have students do that all the time. But they're beginning programmers, and so hopefully they're not going to try to infect my computer with a virus, but you never know. I do scan them before I open them. But just beware of what you open, and it'll help tremendously with getting any viruses at all. So types of computer viruses: file infector virus, resident virus, boot sector virus, companion virus, macro virus. Macro virus isn't around too much anymore today. It used to be real prevalent, like in Office 2000, 2003, 97, because a lot of hackers put macros. It was easy to create a program within any Word document, because behind every program like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you can do what's called VBA programming and program anything to do for that program to do when you run it. It can do everything a real program can do behind the scenes, deleting files that you don't want them to delete, send emails. You name it, it can do it behind the scenes if you can accept a macro. But anymore, in the newer versions of Office anyway, it does give you a real good warning that, hey, this is a macro attached to this file. Do you want to run it? And it does give a disclaimer saying it could cause damage to the computer, a whole list of stuff. But even then, people will say, yeah, well, Joe sent it to me, so it must be okay, and open it. And so you just have to educate people, make sure that Joe really did send that and he knows that there's a macro attached to it. Metamorphic virus. This one's avoid detection by altering how they appear each time. Every time that it runs, it could be, or just a one-time how it appears. An example of this would be antivirus 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. This is just some names of antivirus that was on computers, websites that would pop up telling people, hey, your computer, I noticed, needs it scanned. Click here to scan it. And it would download this application, which would then, in time, overwrite your actual real antivirus with this program and disable your real antivirus like McAfee or Norton. And then over time, it would begin then doing damage to your computer to where eventually, when you log into your computer, you couldn't do anything. If you did Control-Delete to go to Task Manager, it would shut Task Manager down. If you went to do a command prompt, it wouldn't let you do a command prompt. It would shut it down. And so the only way you could do it is there was a script that you could actually get from these antivirus websites, paste that script into a run command, run it, and then it would kill that process that's running and doing all this, and then go in and clean it up. But most users aren't going to do that. They're just going to be like, I don't know, my computer's shot, it's dead, and bring in a computer shot. Polymorphic virus encrypts the content differently each time, and so it's hard for antivirus softwares to catch it, because one of the things antivirus softwares will do is they will look for, over the time a program runs, patterns that program does. And if a program runs differently, or it may be a different name each time, that's hard to grasp, or hard for it to train to get grasped by that and grabbed by the antivirus program. And so an example of this is it'll actually look in your computer for executables, rename the antivirus, polymorphic antivirus, with those executables that might have the number 1 to the end of the name of that executable, whatever it is. So if it's system, it finds a system.exe, which is a popular name in Windows, system1.exe, and then system2.exe, and then system3.exe, so on and so forth. And by the way, the word system, notepad, those two names are prominent names that hackers use to create viruses. And the reason for that is, well, notepad's not going to be blocked by anything in an antivirus program. And system is generally used as a system file for the system to run properly. And so it just looks for the beginning name to start with system. If it sees it as a beginning name starting with system, a lot of antivirus programs will not block it, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. And so the reason I know that is, with the notepad example, I think I mentioned this last week when I was a computer teacher at high school, blocking AOE and Age of Empires, and I think Quake was one, and some other ones I blocked from students' computers in the computer lab. Well, they figured out in about 5 seconds, because I was blocking the executable name, the process name. They figured out real quick, I'll just name it to Notepad and it'll run anywhere. But the one thing they couldn't do is reverse engineer the app to rename the title of the app. They couldn't figure that one out. I think they had a few more years. They probably figured that one out. But these software antivirus companies will basically just look at the process name. They're going to look at the process name for the most part. Now you can program in there and say, I'm going to add this file. It's going to block it or whatever. But anyway, that's polymorphic. It can change each time, and you really don't know what it's going to change to because the logic's in the program itself. So it's kind of hard to detect. A worm is a program designed to take advantage of a vulnerability in an application. Like, say, for instance, I mentioned last week, most businesses in America, anywhere from 40%, 50% compliance with updates. That's open field for worms to come into your system. And these are worms that have been out there for years. These worms might be out there since 1995, like the 95 Windows 95. I mean, that's how old they are. They're still out there doing stuff, believe it or not. And what's scary is the most prominent places that are actually low on the totem pole or high on the totem pole, if you want to look at it, as far as not being in compliance, is governmental facilities and, folks that run the nation. It's kind of scary. But it's true, and it's not uncommon knowledge. It's common knowledge amongst computer folks that they are very laxing in security as far as being updated on the newest and greatest. Worms are different from viruses in 2 regards. It can travel by itself. It does not require any user interaction. And one of the things the book doesn't mention is the fact that worms can sit there dormant for a long time as well. And it can be based on timestamp anomalies, can be based on user activity, can be based on a whole different mix of things. It can, when all the dominoes fall into place, it goes, oh, it's going to run now. Okay? And you can think of any anomaly that you want to. You can think of any series of events that basically anybody in a company could do over a period of time. Like, for instance, open up Word 3 times in an hour, that could be the pattern. It could be, I don't know, go to a certain website, like say, I don't know, google.com 4 times in an hour. If you go up to 4, if you go within 4 times in an hour, it's going to fire up this whatever to run. So regardless of what it is, a real popular one today would be Facebook, because everybody at work is allowed to go on Facebook for the most part, at least for a short amount of time, maybe 10 minutes, an hour during lunch or whatever. The other one is streaming audio. Streaming audio, I mean, folks don't even buy CDs anymore. You don't go to the store and buy CDs for the most part. Don't have to download music because you can stream it, right? Pandora is an example. Great application. I use it. I know a lot of people that use it. It's in cars. It's on phones. It's on tablets. And, you can program in there any genre of music you like. It's very much targeted, though, by hackers to use worms with these types of programs. And really what it is it's a valid program, but they put them on all these peer-to-peer websites, these executables for Pandora, and they take that executable for Pandora and they add to that executable this worm, to where when you download Pandora, it runs as Pandora should run, but it also runs this worm each time the program's executed. And so it's not that Pandora itself is bad, it's they take Pandora, bring it down, reverse engineer it, add in a worm, upload it to these thousands of peer-to-peer sites, and people download them from those peer-to-peer sites instead of Pandora.com, which they should download them from, right? And so, it's kind of like I said last week, network security is more about logically thinking through processes and procedures versus what's the next new thing are we going to be ready for next year. If you apply some common sense to what you do and what you train people to do, what we're talking about this week could still happen, but it's going to be much less of a chance happening if you download it from reputable sites, you watch what you open in email attachments, you watch what you share with people on your computers, you watch what websites you go to. Do not go to peer-to-peer sites, do not go to LimeWire site, do not go to any of these sites that are gaming sites. Stay away from gaming sites that have all online games. Just chock full of worms and malware and viruses. And millions of people go to them. And really, the target age for these types of things I'm talking about tonight, and sad to say, is those that are near retirement, because I've taught a lot here in Rockford. Once a year, usually I go to the retirement center, and we have one here at Rock Valley. And I teach them exactly what I'm talking about tonight in a series of, buying stuff online, things you shouldn't do, download websites. And a lot of them didn't know all this, and so they've been opening up every email because their grandkids and their kids never visit them anymore. And so if they get an email that says, "How you doing?" in the subject line, guess what? They're opening it. And the attachment's on there, even better, they're going to open that, And so it's just, a lot of it's, they're lonely and they want somebody to communicate with, and they don't care if it's somebody in India that just created a malware or virus. They don't know that. They're communicating with them. And so, I teach them ways that they can use their computer to communicate to their kids that might not come to where they're living. They can use like FaceTime, or they can use Skype. They've never used that before. That's a great tool. And so kind of getting away from just clicking on everything, downloading everything. And so just common sense. And I think every business should educate their people in real basic stuff like that. Just real basic computer 101, network security 101. You might not ever be a network security person, you can tell them, but this is stuff you need to know to not only be safe here at work, but at home and beyond. And so it does take money to do this and time, but I think it's well worth it. And I don't think many businesses don't do that at all. They just kind of wait for something to happen. As long as everything's going good, so be it. But, it's kind of an ongoing joke in IT shops. They don't, these worms and viruses aren't named by the names of the viruses anymore. They're named by the people that actually it happened to. So what I mean by that is you go up to any IT person that's been working in IT for a number of years that has to deal with viruses and malware on an ongoing basis. And until you work in those areas, you really don't realize how many's out there. You really don't realize what's out there, I guess. But I know one guy that I won't mention his name, but because he could listen to this podcast. But whenever I ask him how his day's been, any interesting viruses you found lately or malware, yeah, I had a Steve virus today. I'm like, a Steve virus? What are you talking about? I've never heard of a Steve virus. He started laughing. He goes, he's been naming the viruses the actual people that it happened to. That's the virus name. And these people, it's not just that they get them once. They might get these viruses and malware multiple times in a week. All right? They're having to constantly reformat their hard drive, constantly train them what not to do. And so I just thought I'd share that with you. So, the Steve virus, the Jill virus, the Susie virus. And so, but worms basically are one of those things that can come in your computer that can definitely do damage. One of the big things it does allow to do in a worm is remote control. Remote controlling a computer. One of the holes in Microsoft's operating systems was Messenger a few years back. The Messenger process that was used years ago in networking to message back and forth in a network environment. You could do command prompts and message back and forth. Well, it's not really used much anymore today, but it was still turned on, and it was way old and had a lot of holes in it. And there were some worms that got out there to attack this very service, this Messenger service. And so since that happened, they patched it evidently, but every system I've ever worked on since then, whether it be PC or server, this service has been turned off. Did you have a comment or question or something?
I have a question for
you.
you. So what is the extent that these viruses and worms can go up? Like, as far as you're talking, you mentioned government.
Yeah.
So at what level of government do these not affect? Like, are you talking like military type?
Yeah, the reason I know what I know is from you guys, actually. Students I've had that have been military in IT told me. And, granted, anything new we get technology-wise with security comes generally from the military. As far as wireless security, that's one example. But their systems that they work in and military, what I mean by their systems, the IT folks in the military have fairly sophisticated stuff they work with. But what they interface with on a daily basis, for let's say documents. Say I'm sending you to another state to do something. Well, instead of emailing you have to do the old-fashioned copying, photocopying, and then also, I don't know if you guys remember, most of you don't remember, you remember the copies where you had to put a blue copy sheet in between each sheet to, I can't remember the name of those sheets, but they were basically blue.
Carbon copy?
Thank you, carbon copy. Carbon copy in between each sheet, and then when you wrote on it for your, service to go wherever to another state, they're still doing that, okay? They're still doing the carbon copy in some areas in the military. And so there's paper trail then. Okay, you got paper trail. And, we don't have to talk too much tonight to know about the leaks that have happened over the last year in the military with documents. And one of the reasons there's leaks that have happened is because there's documents. There's documents to leak, literal documents. And so where every other organization in the world is trying to go paperless, right, from healthcare to every business, but they're one of the last ones that, and again, there's certain areas like IT and that are into R&D and stuff that use top-level stuff and top-level security, but everything they interface with could be 15, 20 years old as far as network security technology. And not only network security technology, it's processes and procedures. Nobody uses carbon copy paper anymore, for the most part. So that's what they're using. They have a lot of Windows 95 machines around still, some Windows 3.1 machines with applications running, and some DOS machines actually still doing some processing power and processing applications and things like that. And so anything that's that old is prone for security issues and security. But one thing they focus on I've been told by students, is real heavy firewalls, up-to-date firewalls. They have fairly good firewalls that, you know, even though inside it's kind of old and antiquated, to get in is not too easy to get in, but you could get in. If you got through the firewall, then you can get a lot of stuff. Getting through the firewall could be a trick, though. It's definitely updated there, which that's good. And so, but internally, it's different. And so, but I think anything governmental or public is like that. You'll just find, if you've ever worked in anything public, any public municipality or governmental facility, you're going to find what I'm talking about. There's going to be stuff that they don't believe in the newest and greatest. If it works, you're using it, by God, till it dies. And even when it dies, you still try to band-aid it to get it to work till you can use it a few more years maybe. And so, you know, it's just the nature of the beast. And so, but I know where you're getting at. How does that could that infect other parts of the United States and other countries and folks that interface with the government? Yeah, it definitely could. I mean, it's definitely a discussion that goes on all the time in network security. It's definitely a discussion that goes all the time. Is it better than it was a year ago or 2 years ago? Yeah, definitely. They keep improving, but it's like snail speed. Anything in government is always snail speed. And so, but that's why it's the onus then is not on, hey, you get your stuff right. It's, no, I've got to get my stuff right and secure that way. If anything does come in, I can take care of it. And so it's a great question. And so get better. But if not, I'm not going to count on it getting better quick. I'm just going to keep my stuff secure and make sure to do the proper procedures on file downloads and things like that. Just be aware of stuff like that. Trojan Horse is another type of malware that conceals. It's a program advertising as one activity. An example of a Trojan would be a game. We talked about the seniors. They're big into gaming. Okay, my mom, before she passed, was into gaming. I found her a game. It was a safe app, but she could communicate with other people all around the world. She had friends like in Germany, China, Japan, Canada. She had like 50 people that was close friends to her and she communicated to every day. But when I was talking to her about, you know, these issues, she had some problems with her computer. And the reason she had some problems with her computer, she had downloaded some applications that had some Trojan horses in it that basically slow her computer down, uses a process, you know, pop-ups at that time was big, advertisements was big at that time. And so Trojan horses will be like a game, a free game people can download, but whenever the people execute it, it runs some hidden something in the background. And that hidden something at that time was a pop-up for ads, to click on those ads and then buy whatever. Okay? Now, it was fairly harmless, but it would slow the computer down. Your screen was full of pop-ups, and, you know, just sluggish all the time. Trojan horse programs are typically executable programs that, again, have hidden attack information inside the code. Rootkit is still out there, and they're fairly prominent with web servers and file servers. And basically on this one, it gives the app escalated privilege for a time to do administrative tasks. And those administrative tasks could be remapping network commands, remapping IP ranges, just to name a few. Okay, a few examples. Once a rootkit, though, gets in a system hard drive, it's fairly difficult to get rid of. The reason is because these hackers don't create a rootkit and then, oh, John, make sure and create a real good uninstall app for that. Okay, it doesn't happen. And so with these rootkits, these antivirus companies have done a fairly good job on creating batch files. Those of you remember batch files, where you basically create a line of commands that you save as a BAT file, and those line of commands just basically go through and delete multiple files on your computer that this rootkit installed. But still, even when you run those, I've seen traces of that rootkit in the system or symptoms of what that rootkit did in the system. And so a lot of times you have to reformat that hard drive and start over again with a brand new, new operating system and everything. It's much easier to do that than spend weeks on end trying to get rid of a rootkit sometimes. And so rootkits have happened here on campus. They've happened just about every place I've worked at has had some history with rootkits in their servers. Generally targets web servers, but it also seen happen to file servers and even email servers. Rootkits have been. Email servers is pretty prominent today because of the influx of spam that comes into an email server. 96, 97, 98% of spam, and some of that spam email has attached to it rootkits in those spammed emails. And if someone was to grab a hold of a spammed email that had a rootkit virus attached to it, it could affect not only that system that they're working on, but the entire email server itself quickly. And so beware of that. They are out there. If you just type the word rootkit into any known antivirus company website, you'll see a whole bunch of rootkit removal tools. Okay? And all of them have them. And some of them do work fairly good, but not some of them don't. They're just hard to get rid of. The rootkit's goal is to hide the presence of that malicious software. It functions by replacing operating system commands with modified versions. They're specifically designed to ignore malicious activity so it can escape detection. And detecting a rootkit, as I mentioned, can be difficult, and removing it can be even more extremely difficult. And reinstalling the operating system a lot of times is the answer. And by the way, if you've not had to reinstall operating systems yet, so wherever your history's been in computers, you will. It's just the nature of the beast with PCs is reformatting the systems over and over again. It's just part of the PC world, okay? And I've done multiple times over the years, probably thousands of times, reformatting PCs and servers. But the one thing I do recommend to students right now, you can jot this down, it's not on our notes, but when you work in an IT shop and you're setting up your PCs for, you're setting up what's called an image for all your PCs in your workplace. When you set up an image, make sure you keep multiple backups of that image in multiple areas. That way, if, say, for instance, a computer goes down or your server goes down, you can pull the latest image that you've developed for that client or for that server and have it up and running within hours, back up to where it was before. And so you can create images called snapshot images easily with free programs, paid programs that create snapshots. You might have heard of snapshots within Vista and 7. They have it. 8 has it. A lot of people don't use it. But it's real powerful where it creates a snapshot of your system at that time and place. And then you can roll back to that snapshot. Or if you have to, re-image it totally, reformat the hard drive and get your latest image from your network drive somewhere. One of the most popular ones that used to be out was Norton Ghost years ago. And then Partition Magic was one that was out after that that's popular. But the one I've used in the last few years is a built-in Windows component for server for backup and restore. It's perfect. It works great. I love it. And it literally, like these computers, took, for each computer in here, I can wipe it out and restore it within 12 minutes, each computer. Done. External hard drive, connect to it, fire up, and you put in the CD-ROM or DVD. That's DVD, I believe, and it starts up the process. But you can even boot it from a USB drive as well. You can set it that way. And so I would recommend that because that'll save you tons of time, even home PCs that you have. I did this when I kept my kids at home, and they were in high school. High schoolers being high schoolers, they're going to do stuff they probably shouldn't do. And so I had to reformat the drive at the house a lot of times. And, again, it'd be done in 30 minutes, from start to finish. And the other thing I recommend, too, is, like we have here on campus for workplace environments, is some type of freezing software system where it freezes that software and system in the place it's at. Like we use Deep Freeze here on campus. It's a perfect application for campus activity. Because when you restart the computer, they could have viruses, malware, download whatever that you don't want to talk about tonight in that computer. And when it restarts, it's totally gone from that system. Okay? So it might be something to think about for work environments as well. Microsoft used to have a deep freeze type of application up through Windows, I believe it was Service Pack 3 of XP, and it worked really well. I used it for a number of years. There are some free ones out there, but the deep freeze one for Phoronix.com, I believe, it's fairly reasonable. I mean, it's really reasonable for companies and individuals to purchase. Because I think you can purchase an individual Phoronix license for like $30, and it's a one-time purchase. So, and then you can use it in at your home or whatever. And so, the new version of deep freeze actually allows you to thaw out, have one thawed folder on your computer to store data. So it might be but it wouldn't be in the same drive as your operating system. So your C drive you could reserve for your operating system, and that's frozen, and all the programs, that's frozen. And then you create a partition that you keep thawed out to store music files, movie files, whatever you want to put in there. Stuff you're changing a lot. And it'll thaw it out, and then you target that folder heavily for scanning and antivirus and stuff like that. So, but even if it got a virus in that folder, it's not going to affect your operating system. So because of deep freeze. Logic bomb, I mentioned a little bit about logic bombs already on some of the other ones. It's just a trigger event. Again, 9/11 coming up, you'll have a logic bombs happen in workplaces, at home, or whatever. Once it's triggered, you can form any number of malicious activities, and extremely difficult again to detect because they've not happened yet. It's a trigger. It happens maybe just once and it's done. It might delete itself. And talking about deleting itself, this is another big thing that programs are doing now, these malicious programs are doing now. They'll do malicious whatever and delete itself. Okay? It's real popular today because even in stuff like, renting books. You guys can rent textbooks now through Amazon and rent it for a semester, and at the end of that semester, it deletes that book from your device or from your PC or Mac or whatever. It's the same concept. It basically does stuff kind of like Mission Impossible. It destroys that after a certain amount of time, or in this case, after it performs a certain function. So it deletes any trace and history as well of that in your system. And so, again, real hard to detect. And then privilege escalation, I mentioned that when I had rootkits, talking about rootkits. This basically is just exploiting a vulnerability to gain access to a computer and making sure that the user, or allowing the user to, or the program to have normal gained access that they normally wouldn't have. And so it could be, for instance, an example on this one is overriding installing programs. Okay, there are ways in Windows where you can, in pct130 we talk about that, but we don't in this class, but where you can create a rule in your computer via a login network, or you can do it locally, and you can set up rules basically to for programs not to be installed on that Windows machine, and these can give privilege, and only administrators can do it. So you could give them administrative step to do something like install a program, delete programs, delete files in system folders. And so privilege escalation is very popular when it comes to concealing things, because it gives a privilege escalation just for that certain task or procedure, and then it stops it from happening after that. An example it gives here, which is a good example of privilege escalation, is when a user with a lower privilege uses privilege escalation to access functions reserved for higher privilege users, like an admin. When a user with privilege escalation accesses the different restricted functions of a similar user. So, for instance, the malware could actually allow this program to go in. Windows blocks you from certain files and other users on that system. It could allow you to get into those files. Okay, to get into those files, to get whatever data you wanted. And then profit, malware for profit. Spam, unsolicited mail. It's a big business, huge business. Next to identity theft, this is the number one, or number two, I guess, next to identity theft, as far as money making. through emails, also through text messaging. Now they've started spamming, and they've gotten real smart on bypassing spam filters. And one of the ways is they have what's called image spam, which basically has the message in an image, and it might be broken up into 3 or 4 images. One image broken up and spliced to where a email filter won't catch it, like Barracuda is a popular email filter, where it won't catch it. And so image spam's real popular, and you've seen them maybe where it brought, like Viagra's a real popular one for image for spamming. That's #1 actually out there right now. And so they'll actually have the ads embedded in an email, in a picture, and then below that picture we'll have a whole bunch of gibberish. It looks like, public domain, and it is usually public domain books. They put excerpts at the bottom so it bypasses the email filter. So it makes sense. The words make sense, but it makes no sense to you when you read it. It's not, and so it's got to have a certain amount of words. You can't just have pictures because the email filter will block it. So it puts words and pictures in the spammed email for the email filter to bypass it. So here's an example of Viagra, Xanax, Valium, Cialis, Ambien, and that's the whole image there. In this circle right here, this here is all an image. Right, get a better color than that. So this here is all an image. And then down here is the gibberish, the nonsensical text that it's putting in the email to actually bypass that filter. Other techniques used is GIF layering, word splitting, geometric variance. And so here's one on GIF layering. And it's showing it to you off center just to show you how it loads them. When it loads in your web browser, it would actually all be lined up. But this slide is just showing you image 1 through image 6. And so it's splitting that image to where, again, the email filter is going to, because you can set up rules on email filters saying, I'm going to block all emails that have one image in that email, and that's it. I'm going to block everything. It just has one image in the body. Well, this would take care of that, and it would bypass it. And you say, well, how do they get by it? Well, these appliances like Barracuda have these built-in rules, right? And they update them every so often. So let's say they change it from the 1 image to, say, 6 images. Even if it has 6 images, it's going to block it. Well, the marketers, the spammers, will then say, okay, no biggie. We're going to start splitting our images into 10 images. It doesn't matter. They can split their images into how many images they want to get the email to go through the. Here's word splitting. This is where basically they have a word, top and bottom word, and they shove it together to actually make sense. When you actually get this email, it would be shoved together. Again, it's just showing you on the slide how it's done. Geometric variance. This one actually puts like a pattern behind the words to make it hard to make sense what it is. And so it kind of is hard for a filter to catch. And I've seen geometric variance along with splitting in tandem, really powerful for spam filter. So image spam cannot be easily filtered based on content. So you have to block it by who sends a message, what's known about the sender itself, the domain, where does the user go if she proceeds to this email, what's the nature of the message content, how is the message technically constructed, and all these take time to filter through and to look at. So actually do that and open up that email and make new rules on the email server that filters them. And it's a full-time job for some businesses, actually, the person over email filtering it and over emailing and Outlook and Exchange. Spyware, term used for software that imposes a user privacy or security. There is an anti-spyware coalition that defines spyware as technologies that are deployed without the user's consent and impair the user's control over using their system and what programs are installed. Collection, using and distributing personal or other information like web activity as an example, or keyboard logging. Material changes that affect their user experience, privacy, or security of their system is all considered anti-spyware, malware, or anti-spyware, or spyware category in general. Spyware has two categories or two characteristics that make it very dangerous. The creators are motivated by profit, meaning there's more money than you can throw at in this business for spyware. And spyware generally is more intrusive than viruses, harder to detect, and more difficult to remove. And it's not always easy to identify, and it's very widespread. Spyware today is mainly in the area of gaming. As I mentioned, you'll hear me say it all semester. Hopefully you'll get at the end of the semester, okay, I got it, gaming. Stay away from online gaming. Stay away from anything that has to do with downloading a game, because it is really, in my experience, the one app, whether it be online or whether it be on a computer, that causes problems is gaming category. All right, and I'm a big gamer. I'm old school, so Galaga was my game when I was in high school, and then I have gotten a little bit into first-person shooter over the years, just teaching students programming like Quake. Counter-Strike was a big one back in early 2000s. So I'm not against gaming, I'm just against downloading games that cause problems on systems. Spyware is very widespread, although attackers use several different spyware tools. The most common is adware and keyloggers. Even today, believe it or not, there's tons of adware out there today and keyloggers. And a lot of people don't know that sometimes if you go to a website, it can actually be recording not only your activity on that website, but it can also be recording your keystrokes for minutes after you've left that website with Java applets as an example. Because a Java applet is an actual application that if you get permission to run it, it can do anything a regular Windows application can do on your machine. An example of it is this. Going back to gaming, say it has a game that you can download on a website. It says, okay, in order to download this game, you have to agree to this information and click an OK button. And when you click the OK button, it says some gibberish in it about consenting, whatever, and do you want the free game? When you click OK, it installs this Java applet on your machine, on your browser. It does download the game, but also installs the Java applet to do whatever it is that Java applet is designed to do. From recording keylogging entries on your computer for an hour afterwards or all the time. And then sending periodically that activity to an email address. Adware can be a security risk because adware programs perform what's called a tracking function. It monitors your user activity and logs it without the user's knowledge. Now, they fought it in court, a lot of them. What I mean by they, the softwares that have this, the websites that had this, what I mentioned on consenting, because the user did click yes, they wanted to download this, and by the way, we did put in that disclaimer that we're installing some type of software, third-party software, to collect meaningful data for our business. Okay? Well, the judges have ruled that's kind of sneaky because nobody reads it. Okay? Nobody reads the gibberish, right, and the legalese on any of this stuff. They just see free, and they click OK. And then it's downloaded, and now they have whatever the malicious activity was that installed it, whether it be monitoring activity to target that person for future coupons in the email or future coupons in mail as well, physical mail. Keylogger is basically a small program that runs and records every keystroke and sends it as a text file to a business. And again, these applications I've just mentioned earlier that are valid applications, some have won in court, most have lost in court because the judges said, what's the purpose of keylogging? Well, they said, well, I'm just trying to want to know their user activity. Well, no, that's not going to fly. And so for most judges, that's shot down. They don't do that much anymore. But there is a lot of logging website activity and places they go to so they can send that person unique advertisement designed just for them. So that has been sold and bought in a lot of areas, even in courts. So Keylogger is not so much anymore today, but still can be run, I've seen, in a Java type of applet. Careful on anything like that. This you're not going to see much anymore on Keylogger, an actual hardware keylogger that plugs into a port, whether it be serial port or whatever port on your computer. Most of these are going to be Java-based, app-based, web-based type of applications that run. They silently capture all your keystrokes, including passwords and sensitive information. And I'll end with this one here that's real popular for keyloggers. What happens is, actually, this is kind of the file that's saved, how it looks anyway. You've got basically in the file not only keylogging information, but whatever website they've been to, and then it puts in their user, say they've typed in their username, they've typed in their password. All these lines are being recorded as they're going through doing their activity, and then once a day all that text is sent to a company or a hacker to feed through. And believe it or not, there's a lot of websites that store cookies on your machine that actually record data through JavaScript, and then when you visit that site again, it sends that data back up to their web servers. But because most every website you go to now, you have to enable cookies to view that website to collect data. But some of that data, if you know JavaScript, in JavaScript you can actually access things like IP address, computer name, how much memory your system has, what operating system you're running, what type of programs are installed, name-wise, what type of programs are installed, how long your computer's been up, what type of system you have, whether it be Dell, Gateway, whatever. These are all found in a JavaScript application that you can run and save as a cookie on a machine. And granted, it's saving it on that machine, right, when it's run, but then when you come back and visit that site, it uploads the latest stats to the web server. Okay? Cookies can store not only, because everybody thinks of cookies as storing such things like, and it does, your activity on that website, maybe preferences, definitely can do that. But it can also store what I just mentioned just a second ago. And a lot of times websites guise themselves as saying, yes, we store cookies, but we only get this information or that information. Or sometimes it can actually get pretty detailed information about your system that you might not want them to know. Yes?
So with the whole thing now with the spy NSA deal on people, how is it that they're getting that?
How's this what now?
How are they getting that information then?
Or
are they using like these things, or I mean what?
They have physical access to the backbone of the internet.
Yeah, they have access to everything. When I mean the NSA has access to things that they have access to literally the whole backbone of the internet and everything that goes on, and so they can see and hear what's going on at pretty much any time they want to. And not just on online activity. We found out phone activity, whatever camera activity in public places. The list goes on and on. What they can do. Okay, one more slide here I want to mention on this one here. This one right here. Anybody heard of zombies or botnets? Zombies and botnets are basically, again, still for profit. And there was actually a whole nation that was attacked by a botnet a couple years back. It was something like 2.5 million computers had it. And it was issued from the government, actually. And it was in an email sent out. Folks opened it up, installed a botnet, and it was actually to collect data and also run processing on idle times from these people's computers. And they can basically control those computers. In this case, they just collected data, but it could actually control a computer as well on off time. A zombie basically is an infected computer with a program that will allow the attacker to remote control it. That's a specific use for that. Attackers use what's called IRC. If you go on an IRC channel, which is still very popular for hackers to use, IRCs have everything in it that you can think of as far as script kiddies, which we'll learn about this semester, downloading tools for hackers that don't know have any skill coding wise, to underground meetings of places that you can learn hacking. And then the last one is a bot herder, which an attacker knows is a bot herder, basically is a zombie. And basically what that means is the computer has no clue and the user has no clue how it's being used, how this computer is being used. And they basically do whatever they want to. In fact, I've known people to say, I walked to my computer the other day and the mouse was moving and I wasn't doing anything. And it was like going crazy. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. And a lot of times, what it is they have something like this installed, or you can also, like on Windows machines, Linux machines, and even Mac machines, you can turn in the background of the system now on these newer machines the ability for anybody to remote control in. It's a simple checkbox. If people have access to your IP address, they can remote it, or remote into that machine. And so some people check it because maybe they used it once and they forgot to go back in and uncheck it, and then folks can get in. The other one that's used a lot for remoting in, besides botnets and zombies, is VNC. VNC is a popular remote control app that can run on any machine, Mac, Linux, Windows, and it's open source. And a lot of these are very easily connected to. The passwords are generally weak, and if you have a web server at home or a business that has VNC on it, most web servers are on what's called a DMZ port, which we'll learn about this semester, which basically opens up that machine to the entire world. And so if you have VNC running on that server and somebody gets to a web server, one of the first things hackers do is they take these domain names and begin to try to port them through a VNC app and see if they can remote into it. And a lot of times VNC apps will have passwords that are the same number or the phone number of the business. That's a popular one. And so they just look up the business, find out the location, because anyone can do what's called a whois lookup on a website. In a whois information on a website, it tells you the owner name, phone number, address. Well, if I VNC a URL and put in that number, there's a good chance that that number is going to let me into that system. Because a lot of IT folks, believe it or not, use phone numbers for VNC of that business. And the reason they do that is not really for security, it's for convenience. Because maybe somebody outside has been working on it, or somebody internally is on the road a lot that works on it, or they have a lot of folks connecting to this one machine for whatever purpose. They just tell everybody it's the phone number of the system or of the business. And so phone numbers used a lot, addresses used a lot, the name of the company is used a lot. The first name of the company is used a lot as passwords today when it comes to VNC. All right, so beware of VNC because of that. I always tell students to have, just because it's internally used doesn't mean people can't get to it externally outside your business. Because if they get into one computer in your business, remote into one computer that's in your business, they can get into every system in that business. There's a chance of that anyway, if they can get into one machine. And I'll end with one of the number one ways that hackers get into systems today is through rogue access points in networks and businesses. Rogue access points. What I mean by that is folks bring in access points into the business, plug it into an Ethernet port, and use it unbeknownst to the business. All right? It could be a hidden SSID, or maybe not a hidden SSID. Maybe say your business is called ABC is the name of the SSID, and this person calls theirs, guess what? ABC. Because you can call it's the same SSID. You have multiple access points with the same SSID. We have that all over campus. We have multiple access points with the same SSID. So they name it the same SSID, but guess what? It's unsecured. It's totally open. It can be totally open. So somebody drives by the building, connects to that open ABC SSID versus the closed one or the secure one, and guess what? They're into the system. They're into the network. Especially if that network is connected to, or that wireless network is connected to your wired network. All right? Because a lot of businesses have guest accounts, but they also have internal accounts. Well, when they set up these rogue access points, they do it for convenience, for sure. Because say the access point in their business is down the hall and they have a real weak signal. They bug the IT department for years to get one near them. For whatever reason, it's not happened. So they decide to bring in, they're savvy enough, they can come in and bring in their own access point. That has been proven, research has proven, recent research has proven that that's the number one way hackers are actually getting into buildings and businesses is through rogue access points. Okay. The second way is through valid access points that have weak passwords. And guess what those password is? I just mentioned it earlier. What do you think the password is that most companies use? Password, that could be one, but it's more popular. There's one more popular than that. Phone number. Okay. The phone number is the number one password that businesses use today in America is the phone number of the business. And so that's the first thing hackers will use. And we'll learn this semester when we get to the wireless network week. There's tons of tools out there that hackers can put in the laptop, put on a mobile device, drive down the road, and there's even one I show you the week we go over it, that actually, that week before I present the session, I actually use it coming to school. It actually dots out on a map exactly every access point along my path coming to school, and it gives you in those dots not only the geolocation, but the access point, SSID, and whether it's open or closed, and whether the password is weak or strong. Okay? And so just driving, normal speed, it catches them. All right? These are free tools out there. There's paid ones out there. And so we'll go over that and show you. It's kind of eye-opening to students because, you would think the residential will be the ones with weak passwords and open SSIDs, but that's not the case. It's a lot of businesses around Rockford that have a lot of open SSIDs, unsecure, and some of them could be, in my estimation, probably rogue access points. And so IT departments, that guess what, are having to go around a lot of times today with laptops or with their iPhone, iPad, or whatever, SSID finder, Wi-Fi finder, to look constantly for these rogue access points in their business. And that's one thing IT departments are having to do all the time now, is to see about if there's any rogue access points around their business, because that can cause a big consternation as far as security goes. All right? On Wednesday, we're going to be doing Aunty Reset. As a reminder, bring in your 3-ring binder and holder. I'll have the 3-hole punched handout for you along with the software. And Sundays, do review questions and quiz. And then next week, we don't have class because campus is closed. If you have any questions, come up and see me. And also, if you're interested in network security testing, email me and let me know. And also, the competition for next semester, let me know. Give me an email.
We do have class on Thursday, though, right?
Yeah, we have class next Thursday, not next Tuesday. Yep.